Case of Jassi and Mithu. In 1994, in the month of December, in the city of Jagaran, in the Ludhiana district of Punjab, a boy named Sukhwinder Singh Sidhu, his nickname was Mithu, after playing a kabaddi match, was standing at a rickshaw stand, waiting for a rickshaw to go back to his village. He had some friends with him who had come to support him during the match and to boost his morale. During that time in Punjab, there were some rickshaws like the ones you're seeing on your screen now. Kabaddi is a sport played between two teams in Punjab, where each player demonstrates their strength and smartness. Since Mithu was the #1 kabaddi player in his village, he was quite attractive and powerful. The rickshaw hadn't arrived at the stand yet, so Mithu and his friends were joking around. Suddenly, they noticed 3 women walking towards the rickshaw stand from the opposite road. As these 3 women approached, Mithu and his friends noticed that 2 of them were older, while the third one accompanying them was a very beautiful young girl. When the rickshaw arrived at the stand, all passengers got in and the beautiful girl sat on the back seat, while Mithu stood behind the rickshaw. During this journey, Mithu noticed that the girl kept looking at him repeatedly, and his friends also noticed this. However, Mithu couldn't talk to the girl, and as soon as she arrived in her village, she got off the rickshaw with her family. Once again, she looked towards Mithu, and for the first time, their eyes met. Besides, she smiled when she looked at Mithu, and in response, Mithu also smiled. Then, both of them went their separate ways. When Mithu started doing some other work after reaching home, he heard a girl's voice screaming, "Please help. I need help." As soon as Mithu stepped out of the house, he saw that it was the same girl he had seen in the morning in the rickshaw, and smiled at while she was leaving. After that, Mithu went to the girl, who had come on a scooter with her friend from her home. Here Mithu first greeted the girl with a hi, and then tried to start the scooter, but deliberately didn't start it. Then Mithu asked the girl her name and also told her his name. Actually, the girl's name was Jaswinder Kaur, but her nickname was Jassi. After that, Mithu said to the girl, "I want to talk to you." Hearing this, Jassi got confused because she didn't understand Mithu's words. So her friend who came with her translated Mithu's words into English for Jassi. Then the girl also said something in English, but Mithu didn't understand English. So Jassi's friend became a translator, and then both went to their respective homes. But from that day on, these two meet regularly. Gradually, Mithu also realizes that Jassi's maternal grandparents' house is the wealthiest home in her neighboring village. Besides, Jassi's maternal home and Mithu's small 2-room house were on the border of 2 villages, meaning Mithu's house was right behind Jassi's maternal grandparents' house. And Mithu knows this fact. After this idea, Jassi and Mithu eloped on March 15th, 1999, avoiding the scrutiny of their families, and got married in a Gurdwara, which is a place of worship for Sikhs. After the marriage, Jassi returns home as if everything is normal, and no one suspects anything. However, the relationship that Jassi's family had been considering for her breaks down for some reason. After staying in Punjab for 2 months and marrying Mithu, Jassi leaves for Canada with her family, but before leaving, she promises Mithu that she will come back soon. After going to Canada, Jassi and Mithu start talking to each other on the phone again, and by now, Mithu's house also had a telephone line installed. Months passed by in this way, but at the beginning of 2000, some relatives of Jassi who were in India come to know about Mithu and Jassi's marriage, and they immediately inform Jassi's parents in Canada. After this, their love story takes a sharp turn. From this point, Mithu's parents start pressuring him, while on the other hand, Jassi's mother and uncle begin pressuring her to break the marriage. However, neither Mithu agrees to it, nor does Jassi consent to breaking the marriage. Although Mithu is tempted by money, and Jassi is tempted by expensive things, cars, and the lure of a luxurious lifestyle, neither of them is willing to break the marriage. One day, Jassi's mother brought documents for Jassi to sign, so that Mithu could come to Canada. Jassi signed them all, unaware that the documents claimed Mithu had forced her into marriage and assaulted her. Later, Jassi came to Canada with her family. In reality, after Jassi signs this document, her family members send it to the India Punjab police. And based on it, an FIR First Information Report is registered against Mithu for abduction, forced marriage, illegal weapons possession, etc. And he is also arrested. After the arrest, Mithu is brutally beaten in jail and stays there for several months. Meanwhile, when Jassi fails to receive any response to Mithu's letters and is unable to contact him over the phone, she finally learns from a friend that Mithu had been jailed on charges of abduction, forced marriage, and other offenses. Here, Jassi discovers that her mother, Malak Kaur, had deceived her by obtaining her signature and implicating Mithu, causing significant difficulties for his family and friends. Furthermore, The Punjab police have arrested Mithu's family members from his home and imprisoned them as well. Then, a few days later, Mithu talks to Jassi where he says to her, "If you wanted to divorce Jassi, you could have just asked me. We got married with your consent. So why did you falsely accuse me?" After this, Jassi tells Mithu the whole story of how her mother and uncle got her to sign on the wrong paper deceitfully. But now, in Canada, Jassi was kept confined in her own home by her mother and uncle. But then one day, Jassi gets an opportunity and successfully manages to come to India with the help of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Then she comes to India and testifies in court that Mithu, his family, and his friends are all innocent. After this statement, everyone, including Mithu, is released from jail. Then Jassi stays in India for some time. This time, Jassi tells Mithu that she will never go back to Canada again. It is said that along with the police, Jassi's father and brother also helped her escape from home. Jassi had come to India and started living with her husband. But both of them also knew that Jassi's family members would not remain silent. That's why as soon as Jassi arrives in India, Mithu takes her away from home and they start living in hiding. Mithu took Jassi to her hometown in June 2000 while they were living at their home. Meanwhile, on June 12th, Mithu's family had organized a party in their village for Mithu and Jassi's wedding. So on June 8th, Jassi tells Mithu that she wants to go shopping. Initially, Mithu refuses because he knew there was still danger. So leaving the house wasn't right. But then, when Jassi sits at home upset, Mithu also feels maybe he did wrong. Jassi left her home in Canada to be with him, and he couldn't even take her shopping. After that, they both leave for the market in the afternoon. It takes them a bit longer to return home. So by the time they get back, it's already evening and the sun has set. Because of this, Mithu's family starts worrying about both of them. A while later, Mithu's family begins searching for them. However, during the search, they receive devastating news that shakes Mithu's family to the core. They find out that Mithu is in a very serious condition, admitted to the hospital, while there's no trace of Jassi. When Mithu's family members rush to the hospital, they find out that Mithu's condition is extremely serious, and he is unconscious. Jassi is not there. Then, after several hours, when Mithu regains consciousness, he first inquires about Jassi. Only then do they inform Mithu about Jassi. A few days later, when Mithu recovers, he explains the reason behind his condition. Mithu says that after reaching the market, Jassi did a lot of shopping, and then they both also had coffee together. Later, as they started returning home from the market, their scooter stopped on its own 3 or 4 times. Twice, he sought help from a mechanic, and once he encountered his friend on the way. However, when the scooter started for the 3rd time, they noticed that they were being followed by 2 people on another scooter. However, after following the scooter riders for some time, they went ahead. But as soon as Mithu turned towards his village, he saw a car in front of him. At first, he saw from a distance that there was no one near the car. But as soon as he approached the car, suddenly 5 to 6 men came out and stood in front of the scooter. One of them even attacked them, which caused blood to start oozing from Jassi's head. After that, Mithu held Jassi and started fighting back against those thugs. But then one thug also attacked Mithu's head with a large rod from a nearby road. After that, Mithu became unconscious and those thugs kept beating Mithu, and finally, thinking he was dead, threw him into the nearby drain. A few hours later, late at night, some laborers passing by noticed Mithu lying there, and they picked him up and took him to the hospital. After learning this story, everyone sets out to find Jassi. This information is also given to the police, and now the police also begin to search for Jassi. After filing cases of assault and abduction against unknown criminals, the next day, on June 9th, Jassi is found, but she was not alive. In fact, Jassi had also been murdered and thrown into a canal which was 45 kilometers away from her hometown. When Jassi's body is retrieved from there, it is discovered that someone had brutally strangled her to death. Additionally, Jassi's body bore dozens of deep wounds, indicating that she had been tortured cruelly before dying. When Jassi's body is found, the Punjab police also contacts Jassi's family. However, Jassi's mother Malota and uncle Surjit Singh both deny recognizing the deceased as Jassi. But Mithu and his family, along with Jassi's father and brother, confirmed that the body is indeed Jassi's. Now, the key question was who had inflicted such severe beating on Mithu and who had brutally murdered Jassi. After Jassi's body was found, the charge of murder was added to the case and the police embarked on the search for the criminals. During the search, the police managed to apprehend several major criminals in the vicinity based on suspicion. The police were so alert because although Jassi was Mithu's wife, she was actually a Canadian citizen. In the case of Jassi's death, Suspicions quickly arose among certain individuals, and the police soon discovered who was involved in Jassie's murder. When the police rigorously interrogated these individuals, some criminals confessed to having committed Jassie's murder themselves and admitted to brutally beating Mithu as well. However, the question remains who instigated all of this. During the investigation, when the names of certain individuals come up, nobody trusts anyone. Anil Kumar, a gangster involved in this incident, implicates Inspector Jinder Singh of the Punjab police, claiming that he had given him a contract to kill Mithu a few days earlier. Now the police immediately start searching for Inspector Jinder Singh and manage to arrest him shortly after. When questioned by the police, Jinder Singh explains that he carried out the murder because he received a phone call from Dharan Singh, Jassie's other uncle who resides in Punjab. Dharan Singh promised him a group of 3 lakhs to kill Mithu. Now the police ask Anil Kumar why he killed Jassie when he was given the contract to kill Mithu. Upon revealing the truth, Anil Kumar and his accomplice leave everyone astonished. Anil Kumar explains that after beating Mithu, they thought he was dead, so they threw him into the nearby drain. Then, following Dharan Singh's orders, they took Jassie to an empty farmhouse. As soon as Jassie regains consciousness upon entering the farmhouse, she begins to search for Mithu. Upon inquiry, the roughs inform her that Mithu is dead. Now he starts talking to Jassie's mother, Malia, who tells him to wait for a moment, and she will tell them what to do next. After this, Jassie's uncle and her mother have a conversation, and afterward, they call the roughs again and instruct them to beat up Jassie and threaten her, besides asking her to testify against Mithu and come back to Canada. Despite being beaten badly by the roughs, Jassie still refuses to return to Canada and testify against Mithu. After this, the roughs once again talk to Jassie's mother and tell her that Jassie is not willing to listen to them. After this, Jassie's mother tells the roughs that if Jassie doesn't listen to anything, they can kill her too. Initially, the roughs refused to do so because their deal was only to kill Mithu for 3 lakh rupees. But Jassie's uncle, Surjit Singh, says a separate 3 lakh rupees will be given to them for Jassie's murder. After that, the roughs brutally beat Jassie, attacking her body with swords, knives, and pieces of glass. Jassie is tortured badly, and finally one of the roughs strangles her to death. Jassie dies and her body is lifted and thrown into a distant canal. Following this revelation, 13 people, including Jassie's maternal uncle Dharan Singh, who resides in India, are arrested in this murder case. They are charged with abduction and murder, among other offenses. Jassie's mother, Malak Kaur, and her uncle, Surjit Singh, who live in Canada, are also considered prime suspects. Now, since the victim and the accused had relations in Canada as well, the trial of this case begins in both India and Canada. During the trial in India, it is proven that when Jassie refused to leave for Canada without Mithu, Jassie's mother, Malak Kaur, and uncle Surjit Singh, that if Mithu is killed, Jassie will surely come back. After this, Surj Singh contacts his brother Dharan Singh in India and assigns him the task of getting Mithu killed. Afterward, he contacts Inspector Jinder Singh of the Punjab police and seeks his assistance in this matter. Following this, Inspector Jinder Singh arranges a meeting between Dharan Singh and a contract killer named Anil Varma. Subsequently, Anil, along with his gang, executes this incident. After a lengthy trial on October 21, 2005, the Sangur court sentences 11 out of 12 people as guilty. Among the convicted individuals are Jassie's other maternal uncle Dharan Singh, Police Inspector Jinder Singh, and contract killer Anil Varma. However, as time progresses, these individuals challenge the verdict of the lower court in the Punjab and Haryana High Court, where almost all the accused are granted bail one by one. In the end, only Jassie's other maternal uncle Dharan Singh, Inspector Jinder Singh, and contract killer Anil Kumar are deemed guilty and sentenced to imprisonment. However, all the convicted individuals challenge this decision of the High Court in the Supreme Court. Subsequently, proceedings begin here as well, and on April 16, 2015, Dharan Singh is acquitted and discharged. However, the rest of the defendants do not receive relief from here and their sentence remains upheld. Apart from this, before delving into what happens in the courts of Canada, let's take a step back in the case. Due to being severely injured in the attack, Mithu remains hospitalized for a long time. While staying in the hospital, Jassie's final rites are also performed. However, as soon as Mithu recovers and returns home from the hospital, a series of 7 cases are filed against him, one after another. There were some cases of illegal weapon possession with allegations of drug selling against Mithu, and pressure is also built by the police and Jassie's relatives to retract his statement and end the case. However, Mithu doesn't yield to anyone's persuasion and continues with the case. Meanwhile, in 2004, a woman accused Mithu of rape. Upon these allegations, Mithu is immediately arrested and sentenced to Lana Central Jail. Mithu stays in this jail for the next 4 years. But after 4 years, it is proven in court that the woman who accused Mithu of rape had connections with Jassi's maternal family, and she falsely accused Mithu for money. After this revelation, Mithu is released from jail after serving 4 years. However, despite this, there were still some cases pending against Mithu, and he continued to have dealings with the jail during this time. Besides Mithu, his brothers also faced different allegations, and behind these accusations was Jassi's uncle, Sarat Singh. When Mithu doesn't fear even fake cases and threats, around 2012, attempts are made to buy him off. In this case, Jassi's family offers Mithu 10 million rupees and a prime location of 14 acres of land to change their statement. However, Mithu remains steadfast and continues the fight for justice. Malik Kaur and Surjit Singh, the main suspects residing in Canada, were extradited to India for the trial of Jassi's murder case, which began on January 6, 2012 in Canada. The police in Maple Ridge arrested Jassi's mother, Mallard Kaur, and her uncle, Surjit Singh, for conspiring against Jassi and arranging her murder. After 2 years, on September 9, 2014, the Supreme Court of British Columbia approves their extradition to India. Both suspects then appeal to the Supreme Court of Canada, which stays the lower court's decision and starts a new trial. On September 8, 2017, the Supreme Court of Canada orders Mallard Kaur and Surjit Singh to be sent back to India to face the charges. After the decision of the Supreme Court of Canada, 3 police officers from Punjab immediately depart for Canada to take the accused into custody. However, in the meantime, the accused once again file a petition for review against the court's decision. As a result, the Punjab police have to return empty-handed. Although the review petition provided temporary relief for a few months, finally, on December 11, 2018, the Supreme Court of Canada rejects the review petition, leading to their definitive extradition to India. After the completion of legal formalities, both accused were repatriated to India by Canadian authorities. A small town in Kipling, Saskatchewan looked forward to a little spooky fun on Halloween night in 1992. But Candice Fonagy had no idea that the horrors that night would go far beyond her wildest expectations. First of all, she recently discovered that her partner was unfaithful to her. Then, she was unable to locate her friend when she went to see her at a nearby hospital. Candice was starting to feel nervous. Candice allowed Dr. John, the only physician in the community, to give her an injection as she sought solace from him. However, she soon sensed that she was being stripped and assaulted. She called the police and reported everyone's favorite doctor, Dr. John. No one, not even the police, took her allegations seriously because he denied doing anything of that kind. For years afterward, the entire community was plagued by suspicion about who was telling the truth, Candice or Dr. John. Then, after a grueling 5 years, a fresh perspective emerged, completely altering the narrative. Kipling, Saskatchewan, a charming town in rural Canada, is steeped in history. Its name honors the renowned writer Rudyard Kipling. Kipling grew from a tiny settlement in the early 1900s to a quaint town with about 1,000 residents. The town's architecture features wide streets and low-rise buildings, with a school and library at its center. There are a few restaurants, a co-op, a small cafe, farming supply stores, and more. Kipling is proud to be the center of the community's medical and educational resources. Kipling's close-knit community is comparable to a large family. The town comes alive with celebrations during the holidays. On Halloween, children dress up and roam the streets in search of candy. The chilly air is filled with a charming and celebratory atmosphere. However, for 23-year-old Candice Fonagy, a Kipling resident, Halloween 1992 changed her entire life. Candice Fonagy was working at a gas station on October 31, 1992, just like any other day. However, this particular day proved to be unique. When Danny, her boyfriend, showed up, they got into a heated fight because Danny had done something that had truly irritated Candice. Candice had had enough of his lies and was shocked to learn that he had asked another girl out to dinner. Out of rage, she punched Danny's truck, causing a dent. Candice was left furious as Danny walked off. She was so upset that she left work and went to see a friend at the Kipling Memorial Union Hospital to unwind. But things did not go as planned. Candice arrived at the Kipling Memorial Union Hospital, hoping to find her friend, but she was not present. Candice was still upset and struggling to calm down. Candace accepted the nurse's suggestion to speak with a doctor after realizing she needed assistance to calm her emotions. That evening, Dr. John Schneeberger was in charge. John Schneeberger was born in Zambia on January 1st, 1961, into a family that valued education. He was a student at the prestigious Kearsney College in South Africa, where he was a standout student and made lots of friends. It came as no surprise when he enrolled in medical school following in his brother's footsteps. He left Kearsney behind to pursue his studies at the University of Stellenbosch, which is located close to Cape Town. He demonstrated his excellence as a student, particularly in anesthesiology, by graduating in December of 1984. John Schneeberger relocated to Kipling, which is south of Saskatchewan, in the year 1987. He officially joined the medical staff at Kipling Medical Center in December 1988, having completed the requirements to become a physician in Canada. Before long, the talk of the town was all about the handsome new doctor with the distinctive accent. In the entire region, he was one of only 2 physicians. He quickly gained the reputation of Dr. John. His initials served as his emblem. He became very popular with the locals, who saw him as a compassionate physician in this small, close-knit community. He was popular with everyone, especially the women, thanks to his polished and easygoing demeanor. He revealed that his female patients were sometimes so enamored with him that they would pretend to be ill in order to see him. He was attractive, tall, and endearing. He was the most eligible bachelor in the town. He met Lisa Dillman, a single mother of 2 children, at his doctor's office. They tied the knot in 1991. He treated Lisa's kids as if they were his own, encouraging them to participate in sports. The couple was again blessed with 2 daughters, born barely a year apart. Not only was Dr. John skilled in general medicine, but he also recognized that the town needed more specialized care. As a full-time physician and father of 4, he continued his education until 1992, when he became an expert in obstetrics and gynecology at the age of 38. In addition to all of this, he was spearheading an effort to raise funds for a new pool that the town would be able to use. At the high school, he also taught a special class on relationships and related topics. For Dr. John, everything was going well, but soon things would change. Dr. John was well known to Candace because, just 9 months prior, he had assisted her in giving birth. She confided in him about her altercation with Danny and her concerns regarding her outburst. Dr. John had witnessed an argument between Candace and Danny during a fundraiser for the Naperville swimming pool. He was aware of Candace's fiery side, and this time she was unable to control her emotions. Dr. John briefly left the room and came back with a small syringe in his hand. Candace was a little taken aback because she had assumed she would be given medication, but the doctor clarified that a shot would be more appropriate given her circumstances. Candace offered her right arm for the shot because she trusted him. Her body felt heavy, as if she were asleep as soon as the medication was injected, and she was barely able to move. She moved from the chair to the exam bed with Dr. John's assistance, lying on her left side with her back to the wall. For Candace, it was an odd sensation. Versed, a type of sedative, is the medication that Dr. John used. It is typically utilized when patients must endure uncomfortable procedures like a colonoscopy. Normally, it puts patients to sleep and causes them to forget what happened during the procedure. But as you can see, every person is unique, and Candace was only immobilized, not unconscious or asleep. She could not react when she felt someone tuck her jeans down and move her underwear to the side while she was dazed. Then the dependable physician did the unimaginable to her. Candace wanted to scream, but all she managed to produce was a weak, raspy noise. She did not see anyone's face during this terrible moment, but Dr. John was the only person in the room with her. When it was all over, the doctor adjusted her pants and underwear. He went out of the room, zipping up his own pants. Because of the powerful medication, Candace was completely disoriented and unable to act. When a nurse checked on Candace, she was too exhausted and lightheaded to drive home, so the nurse recommended that Candace stay the night. Keeping the incident from the nurse, Candace went to bed feeling very disoriented. Because of the medication, Dr. John probably thought she would not remember anything, but that was not the case. Candace's head felt foggy the next morning, and for a brief while, she was not quite sure what had happened. How could Dr. John, who was usually so kind, do something so horrible? Her doubt, however, was short-lived that she immediately recalled every detail of what had transpired. Before she could leave the hospital, she had to wait for the doctor to finish his morning rounds. Upon seeing him at last, she inquired about the medication he had administered to her. He asked her why she wanted to know and if it had given her crazy dreams while remaining composed at the time. Although she was traumatized and still experiencing the side effects of the powerful medication, Candace was able to maintain focus even though she knew he would never admit to what he had done to her. If she ever wanted to prove the doctor's guilt, what she did next was vital. When she removed her panties, she noticed a stain. She hurriedly placed her panties in a plastic bag and closed it, realizing that this might be her only piece of evidence. Candace realized she had to get the word out to someone as soon as possible about what had occurred. However, she did not feel comfortable reporting it in Kipling, where she was raised, because she knew the doctor had connections to the local police department. Rather, she made the decision to travel 2 hours by car to Regina. She visited a clinic there so that the appropriate tests could be performed. The material on Candace's underwear was unquestionably bodily fluid, as the test revealed. Additionally, some was discovered in swabs taken from her private area and on her jeans. The Regina police were alerted by the hospital right away, and Candace informed them of the incident. She clarified that the bodily fluid they discovered could only have come from the attacker, Dr. John Schneeberger, because she had not engaged in any sexual activity in the weeks prior to the incident. DNA was a novel concept in science back in the early 1990s, 3 years before Candace's ordeal in 1989. Evidence was used for the first time in Canada to apprehend a criminal. She was very wise to go to the clinic straight away and get the test done, since they could use the bodily fluid's DNA to see if it matched the doctor's. After learning about the situation, the Kipling police visited the hospital to conduct their own investigation. They started attempting to determine when the attack might have occurred. They discovered that there was a 20-minute window during which Dr. John could have carried out the attack. There was only one other man in the hospital that night, and he never left his wife alone while she was giving birth. After that, the police went to Dr. John's residence to question him regarding the incident. He was furious and claimed that on Halloween night, Candace was acting strangely when she arrived at the hospital. He claimed to have given her medication to help her relax. According to him, Candace may have confused things or possibly dreamed about the assault while under the influence of the medication. He hinted that she might have made these accusations to coerce him, but he provided a sample of his blood for DNA testing to demonstrate his innocence. For Candace, the lengthy DNA testing process seemed to go on forever. Around this period, rumors concerning Candace's assertions had begun to circulate in Kipling, a tiny town. She was not well believed by many. Some began to wonder if the assault actually occurred because Candace chose not to speak with the nurses who were on duty the night of the attack. There was a theory that Candace may have kept the evidence to force the doctor to pay her to drop the charges. Even though Candace and the doctor may have had consensual sexual relations, she was held accountable for the events by some individuals. At this time, Candace felt incredibly isolated. Dr. John, on the other hand, was well received. He was well liked by the general public and had never been involved in any scandals. When he revealed what Candace had said to his wife, Lisa, she was convinced of his innocence. Lisa found it hard to accept that the father of her children and her devoted spouse could be cruel to anyone. She thought that Candace might have been having feelings for her husband and was hurting him by expressing these thoughts because he was not feeling the same way about her. She disliked Candace and was enraged that she was attempting to harm the family name and the reputation of her husband. By this point, Candace had received the results of the DNA test, and to her dismay, neither the DNA nor the bodily fluid discovered on her underwear matched the blood sample from Dr. John Schneeberger. It was decided that he was innocent. He was happy to move on and freely expressed his relief to his friends and co-workers. So was it really a dream? And even if it was, how would one account for the stains on her panties? Still, the town did not need an explanation. Many believed that Candace had falsely accused the reputable physician, and as a result, she lost a number of friends. Even though they struggled, Candace's parents never wavered in their belief in her. Regardless of the DNA result, Candace was adamant that Dr. John had attacked her on Halloween and was not willing to back down. She insisted on a second test because she was positive that Dr. John, a specialist in medicine, had altered his blood sample in some way to produce different results. Police had to admit that they did not witness the initial blood test, which was required by law, acknowledging Candace's tenacity that went up to Dr. John to request another blood sample. Despite being incensed and insulted by the request, he reluctantly complied. He was aware that his reputation and career could be damaged by these charges. His wife Lisa was by his side the entire time, giving him unwavering support. Dr. John visited a lab in August 1993 to give another blood sample. 2 law enforcement officials were there to supervise the procedure this time. After the doctor rolled up his left sleeve, the lab technician started using a needle to take blood. But Dr. John stepped in, grabbed the technician's needle, and completed the task himself. An RCMP officer was standing close by, watching intently. To be extra thorough, Dr. John filled a second vial of blood after filling the first one. In response to the officer's questioning, Dr. John said that the prior blood draw had damaged a tendon, which was the reason for the bruises on his upper arm. The officer was satisfied because the explanations made sense. The blood files were then taken by the officers for analysis. Candace continued to endure the resentful glances from Kipling residents for 6 more months. She persisted in believing that she was correct and that the test results would eventually support her belief despite the obstacles. Nevertheless, her expectations were not met by reality. The results of the second test showed that, once more, the DNA profile of the fluid found in Candace's underwear did not match the blood sample from Dr. John. In 1994, the case against Dr. John Schneeberger was concluded. The DNA evidence appeared to confirm the opposite of what Candace instinctively felt to be true once more. Lisa Schneeberger was particularly vocal, implying that Candace was looking for financial gain from the situation. It turned into a case of a young mother on her own against a highly respected physician, who was also a father of 4 and well-liked in the community. In Kipling, the criticism directed at Candace was tremendous. She knew it was time to go because she felt alienated in her hometown. She moved to Regina with her daughter, saying goodbye to the town. Life carried on in Kipling's usual manner. The Schneeberger family continued their journey, putting the past behind them. In a week following the release of the results of the second DNA test, Dr. John Schneeberger, who retained his South African residency rights, became a citizen of Canada. But the idea that Dr. John had gotten away with it haunted Candace, and she refused to let go. And Candace was afraid he would hurt someone else. She decided to take matters into her own hands because she was determined to find out. She hired a private investigator with the support of her attorney. After retiring from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Larry O'Brien, who had 25 years of experience, began his career as a private investigator. His impression of Candace's honesty was cemented after their first conversation. He agreed with her suspicion that Dr. John's DNA tests were not quite right. They had to come up with another method of proving his guilt, another way to get his DNA. O'Brien made a pretty smart first attempt. He sent an assistant to visit Dr. John Schneeberger's residence while posing as a representative of a nearby radio station. The doctor was tricked by the assistant into entering a fictitious contest and placing his entry in an envelope. John handed the envelope back after sealing it. Though this plan failed, it might have yielded the DNA that would validate Candace's story. Later on, O'Brien clarified that there was a problem with the envelope. Despite being chosen at random from a fresh box, it became contaminated in some way which was not supposed to happen. It was uncommon to have secrets in a small town like Kipling. They were aware of one another's business. The cleaning lady from Schneeberger's knew the Fonages, and she told Lisa that the Fonages had a private investigator. Lisa was enraged to find that Candace had not given up because she thought the unpleasant situation was over. The Kipling Medical Center sent a letter to Candace's family within a week telling them they were no longer welcome. In a town with just 2 doctors, this was a serious problem. They would have to get medical attention outside of Kipling if they got sick. Larry O'Brien followed Dr. in his car on Saturday, March 23, 1996, while he waited for him to park. The first initial of the doctor's last name, Snee, was personalized on the license plate of his car. This was without a doubt the vehicle belonging to the man Candace thought had abused her. As soon as Dr. John was out of sight, the private investigator attempted to open the driver's door, which, like most cars in Kipling, was unlocked. He knew precisely what he was looking for. He looked in the ashtray and found a used chapstick. He also found hair strands on the headrest of the driver's seat. Although it appeared brand new, he discovered the edge was worn when he opened it. It had already been put to use. He sealed it in a forensic bag after rubbing it on the envelope's window section. Candace paid for DNA testing at a separate lab by using a loan from her parents. The hair samples could not be tested because they lacked roots. On the chapstick, though, was some residual saliva. When the results were received after 2 weeks, they did not match the blood sample that Dr. John had provided. But the tale had one more twist. The stain discovered in Candace's assault kit and the DNA on Dr. John's chapstick matched. It was finally verified that Dr. John Schneeberger was, in fact, the person who had attacked Candace as she had always believed. Although it took her 4 years to prove this, the war was far from over. The significant obstacles stood in their way, notwithstanding the chapstick's evidence. They could not demonstrate that John was the only chapstick user, and the fact that the private investigator had obtained evidence by breaking into this car without authorization meant that it would not be accepted in court. They gave the police access to the evidence, but they were limited in what they could do. Nevertheless, the cops were persuaded by the evidence that Candace was telling the truth. They only needed to find a different way to prove Dr. John's guilt, because they were positive he was guilty. With the evidence that Candace's private investigator had uncovered, the officers came up to John and requested a third blood sample. In November of 1996, Dr. John had additional blood drawn. This time, the entire procedure was recorded by the police. The doctor refused to allow the nurse to prick his finger, stating that he had a medical condition that would cause severe bruises if blood were extracted from his hands. He held out his arm and complied. They could not make him do anything against his will without a court order. The nurse's expression of surprise can be heard during the testing procedure in the video recording. Nothing looked particularly fresh about the blood she had just taken from the doctor's left arm. It appeared to be ancient due to its dark brown color. After examining the sample, the technicians determined that it was of inadequate quality, which precluded carrying out appropriate testing. Candace was incensed. If the blood seemed strange, why had they accepted it? When the doctor was still at the lab, why did not they insist on another sample? She had gone a long way in demonstrating that Dr. John was not who he claimed to be, and she had no intention of giving up just yet. In a desperate attempt, Candace bravely decided to sue the doctor in civil court. She also informed the nearby medical society about his behavior. It was evident throughout the court proceedings that the majority of people supported Dr. John. Lisa, his wife, was incensed that Candace had implicated her husband in such a heinous act and was not inclined to accept the possibility that it was true. She even used derogatory language to characterize Candace during a local TV station interview. Sadly, the civil lawsuit never proceeded, and Candace was forced to accept the possibility that Dr. John might get away with his misdeeds. But things were about to turn around. Lisa Schneeberger learned of something going on within her own family's home on April 25, 1997. Her 15-year-old daughter from her first marriage informed her that something strange had been going on. During the night, her stepfather came to her room and gave her an injection. When she awoke, she found the condom wrapper in her bed. She showed her mother by bringing her to her bedroom. When Lisa asked her daughter if it had happened before, she replied that it was not the first time. Lisa recalled inquiring once about giving her daughter an injection, to which her husband acknowledged having done so and explained that the girl had been coughing and he was just trying to help her. Lisa had never heard any coughing, but she did not think twice about it because he was the doctor. Lisa discovered that when her daughter was just 13 years old, 2 years prior, John had begun abusing her. Lisa questioned her daughter about why she had not spoken up earlier, and she gave an explanation of her reasoning. If her mother did not believe Candace, why would she believe her? She could never have imagined, even in her most romantic fantasies, that the devoted father and stepfather she loved so much was actually a predator. Lisa discovered sedatives, including Versed, condoms, and syringes concealed on a high shelf in her husband's home office. It was a major step when Lisa asked John to leave their house and told the police everything. When Candace learned the news, she was shocked. After spending years battling for justice and fearing that John might harm someone else, learning that he had preyed on his own stepdaughter was undoubtedly bad news. Candace said that day she found out would always be in her memory. John was again sampled by the police. This time it is hair, saliva, and blood. They collected the blood from his finger. Upon receiving the test results, it was verified that Dr. John's DNA corresponded with both the DNA discovered in Candace's underwear and the DNA from the chapstick that was discovered in his vehicle. Following his arrest, John was charged with assaulting both his stepdaughter and Candace Fonagy. Despite Dr. John's best efforts to persuade Lisa of his innocence and his desire for her support, Lisa happily decided to believe her daughter and rejected his attempts to change her mind. Lisa was left alone to raise her 4 children, the youngest of whom was only 13 months old. To pay off the mortgage, she had to sell the family vehicle. In Red Deer, Alberta, she was able to secure employment at the Diabetes Association. This gave her the opportunity to start over in a new location and provide for her family. The trial of Dr. John Schneeberger started in 1999. He continued to refute the accusations during the trial. He was under the impression that Candace had broken into his home, removed the used condom from the basement trash, and used the bubbly fluid to fabricate accusations. He asserted that she intended to set him up for financial gain in blackmail. As soon as he realized what was going on, he acted decisively to defend his family, his reputation in the community, and himself. He meant manipulation of evidence when he mentioned strong actions. Even after he confessed, no one knew how he did it. The eagerly anticipated moment soon arrived. It was demanded of Dr. John an explanation of how he altered the DNA evidence. The public was profoundly affected by the genuinely shocking events that transpired during this crime. But when his desperate plan was eventually revealed, the real surprise was still to come. Dr. John had surgically placed a tube, a 15 centimeters Penrose drain filled with the blood of another man, into his arm next to his actual vein, following the initial request for a blood sample in 1992. Also, he had added anticoagulants to maintain the blood's fluidity. He set things up so that the technician drew blood from the tube, rather than his real vein when he was brought to the police lab for testing. He took out the tube following the test. He went through this again for the second test 9 months later. He put the tube back in April 1996, after finding out that Candace had hired an investigator. This could clarify why the nurse believed the blood to be aged. It belonged to Danny Sabo, one of his male patients, and it was, in fact, as old as 7 months. After watching the video, investigators saw how Dr. John had manipulated the situation. He consistently extended his left arm and rolled up his sleeve just above the elbow, concealing the scar from where he had cut himself to insert the tube. There is a brief moment in the video where you can see the elevated skin in the shape of a tube. In the spotlight, as the main witness was Candace, her voice was finally acknowledged and heard after all these years. The defense tried to portray her as a money lover and a deceiver, but she refused to accept that. As resolute as ever, she stressed that she had no hidden agenda for searching for the doctor's truth all those years. The defense argued that the sedative Candace had taken had clouded her memory of the crime. "We will drug you unversed and you can explain to us how it feels," Candace said to John's attorney. Took 7 years before Dr. John Schneeberger was found guilty of assault, administering a noxious substance and obstructing justice. For these offenses, he received a 6-year prison sentence. He was very fortunate to have escaped the usual life sentence that was the maximum punishment for these offenses. Furthermore, there was not enough proof to convict him of assaulting a stepdaughter, so the case was dismissed. Candace Fonagy felt vindicated, nevertheless. "This is a glorious day that I have waited for 7 years, the woman remarked following the trial. "I hope he rusts because that is exactly what he deserves for all the hurt he caused." The College of Physicians and Surgeons of Saskatchewan revoked his medical license because of his misuse of a position of trust. Lisa Schneeberger submitted a divorce petition. Dr. John insisted on keeping his parental rights even after receiving his sentence, and Lisa was compelled to take their daughters to see him in jail on the last Sunday of each month. They were also required to call them on Mondays for an hour-long talk. The girls would frequently hide behind their mother in tears when they visited him in prison. They avoided being close to or conversing with their father out of fear. He had broken their family and hurt their sister. Because the meeting was too upsetting for the young girls, who were 5 and 6 years old, the social worker stepped in and ended it. Even John acknowledged that this was an inappropriate method for his daughters to meet with him, and that Lisa did not need to bring them back. Lisa told immigration authorities that he had lied on his citizenship application, and that there was no investigation against him because she was worried he would be released from prison in 6 years and inflict more harm on the family. After that, he was deported to South Africa, where he was granted permanent residency. He moved to live with his mother in Durban after running out of options. He worked as a caterer for a while before turning to religion after being denied his medical license. In recent years, John joined the Durban Wine Academy, which is affiliated with the Cape Wine Academy, and received approval to lead wine tasting courses and provide sommelier training. In addition to working as a care assistant in a Saskatchewan Addiction Services facility, Candace Fonagy found happiness in marriage. Regarding Lisa Dillman, she is still of the opinion that her ex-husband has no regrets. Despite the complete upheaval in her life, she concentrated on raising her daughters. "At least I can tell my girls when they are older I try," she remarked. "They will be aware that their mother made an effort to keep them away from him." On the morning of August 3, 2007, the day started off bright and sunny for Daniel Burrows, a 61-year-old resident of Mays Landing, New Jersey, along with his 45-year-old wife, Loretta, and other community members. Daniel and Loretta had been married for several years, but things took an unexpected turn that afternoon. Loretta spotted Daniel in the company of a blonde girl. driving a yellow Hummer with 4 of the license plates. Naturally, she was taken aback and confronted Daniel about the situation. To her shock, Daniel confessed that he was leaving her for the younger lady. Unfortunately, that was the last time anyone saw Daniel. Many questions soon arise. What happened to Daniel? Did he simply elope with the younger woman? Or is there a more troubling reason behind his sudden change in behavior and subsequent disappearance? Mays Landing, located within Hamilton Township in Atlantic County, New Jersey, is an unincorporated community and census-designated place. According to the 2010 U.S. Census, the population of Mays Landing was recorded at 2,135 individuals. Notably, it serves as the county seat of Atlantic County, which is situated along the Jersey Shore. As of the 2020 census, Atlantic County ranks as the state's 15th most populous county. Mays Landing is renowned for the popular Balick Winery, one of the largest wine producers in the state. The residents of this community are known for their easygoing and cheerful nature. In 2007, the crime rate in Mays Landing stood at 329 incidents per 100,000 people, significantly lower than the national average of 472. This is the very community where Daniel Burrows and his wife resided. Daniel Burrows, born on November 6, 1946 in Sheldon, Texas, was raised in the heart of Delaware County, Pennsylvania, alongside his sister, Jean Burrows Gallagher. Due to certain circumstances, they later moved to New Jersey where his mother, Louise Floria Wontersick, remarried Raymond J. Wontersick. Daniel's half-brother, Raymond J. Wontersick III, quickly became his closest companion. From a young age, Daniel displayed an extraordinary talent for craftsmanship, with his hands possessing a magical touch. His skills ranged from custom automotive paintwork to home construction. Although he did not have a conventional job, his knack for car repairs and renovations kept him occupied and satisfied. In 1960, Daniel attended high school where he crossed paths with Loretta Doyle, his high school sweetheart. They experienced the highs and lows of teenage love, but their relationship was not particularly serious during that time. Unexpectedly, they went their separate ways after graduation and lost contact for many years. Both Daniel and Loretta moved on and married different individuals. However, they both went through divorces in 1970. Unfortunately, Loretta's second husband passed away in February 1994. Shortly after reconnecting, Loretta and Daniel's bond reunited, and they began dating once again. After 3 years of dating, the high school sweethearts decided to get married in 1997. They settled in Mays Landing, New Jersey, and everything seemed blissful. They blended their families with children from their previous marriages, and Loretta even had 4 grandchildren. Daniel was a devoted father to his 2 children, Carolyn and Danny Jr., and a loving grandfather to Amanda Costa. However, their marriage was not as uncomplicated as it appeared. Over time, challenges arose beneath the surface of their seemingly smooth relationship. On August 3, 2007, mysteriously vanished from their home. Loretta recounted that Daniel had departed with a younger blonde woman in a yellow Hummer. As per her account, the woman was a waitress from Florida whom they had encountered during their vacation at a restaurant. Daniel developed a strong liking for the place, resulting in them dining there almost every day of their vacation. Upon their return home, Loretta embarked on another vacation with her daughter's family. Upon her return, she was taken aback to find Daniel in their driveway with the woman from Florida. While she was still trying to comprehend the situation, Daniel announced his intention to go to Florida, the Sunshine State, with her. Loretta insisted that Daniel had always desired to relocate and retire in Florida, a plan she opposed due to the proximity of her grandchildren. Their conflicting views on retirement plans strained their relationship. Following Daniel's sudden move, Loretta was devastated and sought revenge. She contemplated selling their house, but since the property was jointly owned by Daniel and Loretta, she could not do so without divorcing him. Instead, she organized a yard sale to dispose of Daniel's belongings. Unsurprisingly, this action infuriated and aroused suspicion among Daniel's friends and family. Robert Valiant, Jr., Daniel's close friend, was perplexed as he knew Daniel cherished his tools for his projects, making it unusual for him to abandon them. Robert confronted Loretta about the yard sale and the abandoned tools, but Loretta asserted that Daniel had no interest in keeping his old belongings and did not wish to take them to Florida. Even Daniel's brother and best friend Raymond found the situation suspicious. Daniel had not shared his new address or informed him of his move to Florida, which they would typically discuss regularly. Daniel's sudden and unexpected departure left those close to him bewildered and concerned. They felt that the narrative did not align, yet they lacked evidence to contradict Loretta's account. However, they were determined to uncover the truth about Daniel's whereabouts and the identity of the mysterious girl who caused him to vanish without a trace. On September 1st, 2007, Raymond made the journey from his Pennsylvania home to visit Loretta and officially reported Daniel as missing to the police. The authorities immediately launched an investigation focusing their search on local databases, particularly in Florida, where Daniel was rumored to have gone. Unfortunately, their efforts yielded no leads or traces of Daniel's whereabouts. Throughout the investigation, the detectives conducted interviews with Loretta, who remained cooperative and forthcoming. They also thoroughly searched her house and property, but found nothing suspicious or out of place. As they delved deeper into Loretta's background, the detectives stumbled upon a past embezzlement case. It came to light that Loretta had embezzled a substantial sum of money, approximately $500,000, from her previous workplace nearly a decade ago. This resulted in a 15-month federal prison sentence prior to her marriage to Daniel in 1997. When confronted with the evidence, Loretta claimed that she had been unfairly targeted by her company, and that others were involved in the embezzlement as well. She admitted that she had kept the secret from Daniel out of fear. Surprisingly, it was revealed that Daniel had visited Loretta regularly during her time in prison, but she had not been entirely honest with him about the reason for her incarceration. Ronald Roberts, Daniel's friend and neighbor, also provided some concerning information to the investigators. He noticed dirt on Loretta's hands and clothing during their interactions and detected a foul odor, which she attributed to a dead animal. Additionally, he observed that a broken trellis had recently been repaired. Despite these suspicions, Loretta always had an explanation ready, frustratingly leaving the police without concrete evidence to make an arrest. As time passed, Daniel's case gradually grew colder, leaving his loved ones desperate for answers. In February 2009, Loretta took a significant step in her life by initiating divorce proceedings against Daniel. After enough time had passed, she believed it was justified to end their marriage and sell their house. To formalize the process, a notice was published in the newspaper. However, when the court hearing arrived, Daniel was nowhere to be found. Loretta's plan was to sell their house in Mays Landing and move to Ventmouth City to be closer to her daughter and sister. In February 2010, Daniel Burrows' family successfully convinced investigators to reopen the case after a local police established a cold case unit in the county. The family also created a Facebook page called Find Daniel Burrows to gather information. In the page's About section, Raymond, Daniel's brother, expressed suspicion towards Loretta's claim Daniel had left with another woman, leaving all his belongings behind. This raised doubts about Loretta's account of events. The case took an unexpected turn in February 2013 when Raymond, frustrated with the lack of progress, contacted the police. He believed that Loretta might be responsible for Daniel's disappearance and hinted that he might be deceased. Loretta was shocked by the accusations of her involvement in her husband's possible death. She maintained that Daniel had simply run away with a younger woman, but without concrete evidence to support either claim, the police were at a standstill. However, Raymond was determined to uncover the truth. He urged the detectives to investigate the suspicious death of Loretta's first husband. There were suspicions among both family members and friends that Loretta had played a role in his demise. The circumstances leading to his death were troubling. After a period of separation, Loretta and her former husband rekindled their relationship for about a week before tragedy struck, and he tragically overdosed. What deepened the suspicions even further was the fact that Loretta had been responsible for administering his medications during this period. Adding to the concerns, the police discovered that Loretta had received a substantial amount of money following his death. However, to everyone's surprise, she did not share any portion of it with his children. This raised red flags and strengthened the belief that something was amiss regarding the circumstances surrounding his death. Authorities began to suspect that Loretta's involvement went beyond what initially appeared. The similarities to Daniel's case only heightened their suspicions. However, despite their growing doubts, the police knew that without Daniel's body, they couldn't build a murder case. Nevertheless, they did stumble upon a potentially significant piece of evidence: a power of attorney document signed by Daniel. Upon closer examination, this document seems suspiciously fake. It had been created on June 12, 2007, and had been legalized by an acquaintance of Loretta's, raising even more questions about the events surrounding Daniel's disappearance. It became evident that Loretta's primary motive was the valuable house, which was worth a substantial amount of money, and she was desperate to cash out. Investigators realized that there was more to this case than initially met the eye, and they were determined to uncover the truth about what had truly happened to Daniel. In the early morning of May 17, 2013, the investigators, led by Sergeant Lynn Doherty of the Atlantic County Prosecutor's Office, obtained search warrants for both Loretta's house and the residence where she had been staying with her sister. The search warrants were executed simultaneously, leaving Loretta with no opportunity to tamper with or destroy any potential evidence. Loretta seemed to have an inkling as to why the police were there, as she anxiously inquired if they were planning to search her house in Ventnor City upon their arrival. Detective Caroline McDonald's stumbled upon an eerie finding while scouring one of the bedrooms in Ventnor City. To her surprise, she discovered a collection of sizable Tupperware containers meticulously arranged and hidden within the closet. Curiously, these containers were the sole items in the house organized in such a manner. Adding to the peculiarity, air freshener beads and dryer sheets were placed atop these containers. However, the moment the containers were opened, a nauseating odor of decay permeated the air, sending shivers down their spines. To their utmost horror, investigators uncovered bones that had been painstakingly separated into 2 containers, along with a concealed skull nestled within a woman's handbag. Loretta was subsequently apprehended and brought in for interrogation at the police station. In a state of distress, she tearfully admitted to the murder of Daniel and disclosed that his remains were concealed within the closet of her Ventnor residence. However, Loretta presented a narrative of domestic violence, asserting that she had acted in self-defense. According to her account, a heated argument ensued between them, prompting her to retreat to the kitchen and retrieve a knife. Loretta alleged that Daniel aggressively lunged at her, resulting in an accidental impalement with the knife. After the incident, she confessed to placing Daniel's lifeless body in the bathtub. When questioned by detectives about her failure to immediately contact emergency services, Loretta provided a disturbing explanation. She revealed that she had left Daniel's body in the bathtub and proceeded to embark on a vacation. Upon her return, she detailed how she relocated his remains into containers. Notably, Loretta admitted to exhuming and carrying these containers with her whenever she moved. The tragic truth surrounding Daniel Burrows was finally unveiled. Loretta faced charges of murder and obstructing her arrest. During the court proceedings, Loretta initially displayed minimal emotion, but as the testimonies unfolded, she broke down and began weeping. The testimonies commenced with Dr. Charles F. Sebert Jr., a forensic pathologist who had opened the containers. Dr. Charles testified that the containers were enveloped in 9 layers of plastic bags meticulously arranged in alternating directions. He also observed the presence of dryer sheets, air fresheners, and scented beads evidently used to mask the scent of decomposition. Upon opening the first container, Dr. Charles discovered a woman's handbag, its color altered by the fluids of decomposition. Inside the bag, he uncovered a cranium, mandible, skull, and jawbone. The second, larger plastic container contained additional skeletal remains, including the left upper arm and lower legs. Upon examining the remains, Dr. Charles observed incisions on the ribs that were consistent with stab wounds. This led him to conclude that the individual had met a violent end, confirming a case of homicide. Following Dr. Charles's testimony, Dr. Stuart Alexander, a forensic odontologist, took the stand and positively identified the remains in the plastic tote as belonging to Daniel Burrows. He compared Burrows' dental records to the teeth found in the skull, providing further evidence of identification. Donna Fontana, a forensic anthropologist from the New Jersey State Police, also provided testimony regarding the condition of the bones within the boxes. To visually demonstrate the state of the bones, Fontana utilized a replica of a human skeleton and accompanying photographs, offering a clear visual aid for the jury. She specifically highlighted the right tibia, a significant bone in the lower leg, which exhibited distinct signs of being cut with a knife and saw. The consistent color of the cut edge with the bone indicated that the cut had occurred around the time of death. Additionally, Fontana observed that several ribs were missing, and those that displayed trauma showed injuries consistent with knife wounds, with one rib being completely fractured. Fontana emphasized that this pattern of dismemberment is often employed to hinder identification and facilitate transportation. On August 3, 2007, Daniel disappeared, with Loretta claiming he had left for a younger woman in a yellow Hummer. However, the prosecution believed that Loretta had orchestrated his murder. In early June 2007, Loretta approached Warware in Edinburgh and requested a power of attorney to be drafted, claiming that she and her husband were selling their home while he was away. Grateful for Loretta's kindness, Heiberg agreed to do it for free. Loretta then sought the assistance of Edward Dwyer to notarize the power of attorney, which she signed in her husband's name without his consent. Loretta's daughter, Nicole de Dimigio, witnessed this act of forgery. After Daniel's death, Loretta utilized the fraudulent document to sell their home for $77,000, with half of the proceeds belonging to Daniel. To gain access to the funds, she initiated a divorce in February 2009, alleging that Daniel had relocated to Florida without providing an address. Her divorce lawyer, Daniel also from, published a notice of the complaint in the press of Atlantic City. During the divorce proceedings, Loretta received half of the money, with the remaining amount granted upon finalization. The prosecutor highlighted that Loretta acquired nearly $100,000, including the proceeds from the sale of Daniel's house and belongings. In his closing statement, Levis emphasized that Loretta had evaded justice for over 8 years, leaving behind only Daniel's remains. The narrative concludes with Loretta becoming $100,000 wealthier and concealing Daniel Burrows in her closet. Following 2 hours of deliberation, the jury found Loretta Burrows guilty of first-degree murder for fatally stabbing her husband, dismembering his body with a knife and saw, packing it into 2 plastic containers, and dragging it with her as she relocated 3 times within 6 years. On March 17, 2015, Loretta was convicted and sentenced to 55 years in prison, with an additional 3 years added for hindering apprehension. She will be eligible for parole in 2060 when she reaches 108 years old. After receiving her sentence, Loretta broke down in court and expressed her hope that her actions would bring some form of peace to those who had been harmed. Currently, Loretta is incarcerated at the Edna Mahone Correctional Facility for Women in Clinton, New Jersey, where she is expected to remain until her death. Raymond Wuntersik experienced a mix of emotions following the conviction of his half-brother's murderer. Raymond had fought for a trial since Daniel's remains were discovered in May of 2013. He wanted the jurors to witness the gruesome evidence of what Loretta had done to Daniel. Raymond stated, "It was my brother who brought justice to this case. He brought justice to himself. His horribly mutilated body won the case." Raymond compared Loretta's actions to those of a butcher slaughtering an animal, emphasizing that Daniel was not an animal, but a kind and gentle person who never caused harm to anyone. Loretta's emotional display in court, coupled with her insinuations of abuse by Daniel, were met with skepticism and dismissal from Raymond and other family members. They believed her tears were fake and her claims were false, suggesting that she only cried because she knew she would spend the rest of her life in prison after being caught. Robert Valiant Sr., a friend of Daniel's, expressed this sentiment. Carolyn Burrows, Daniel's sister, was both outraged and bewildered by Loretta's behavior. She revealed that Loretta had attempted to sell Daniel's belongings shortly after his disappearance and had even advised people not to worry about him. Carolyn questioned how Loretta could have kept Daniel hidden in her closet while moving him from house to house. Assistant Atlantic County Prosecutor Kathleen Bond described Loretta's actions as unimaginable, resembling scenes from nightmares and horror movies. Bond highlighted that Loretta not only brutally stabbed her husband to death, but also dismembered his body with a serrated knife, leaving it to decompose for 6 years. At the time of this video's release, there were no updates on the investigation into the death of Loretta's first husband. Daniel Burrows' story serves as a reminder to persistently advocate for what we believe in. The determination and advocacy displayed by Daniel's family, including the creation of a Facebook page and their push for reinvestigation, ultimately led to the uncovering of the truth. This case exemplifies the power of seeking justice and the importance of persistence. Regarding whether justice was served for Daniel Burrows and whether Loretta's sentence was appropriate or she should have received the death penalty, that is a matter of personal opinion. What was intended to be a joyful family camping trip, filled with laughter, esmores, and nights under the stars, turned into an unthinkable nightmare for the Schmidt family. In the early hours of July 22, 2022, an unknown attacker brutally took the lives of 3 family members while they slept inside their tent. The shocking tragedy rippled through the community, leaving everyone grappling with the question of who could commit such a horrific act. In this video, we'll delve into the details of this devastating case and seek to understand the events that led to the loss of 3 innocent lives. This is the chilling story of the Schmidt family. Tyler Schmidt was born on November 13, 1979, in Iowa, USA, and grew up in Cedar Falls, a city recognized for hosting the University of Northern Iowa. From an early age, Tyler was involved in the Boy Scouts, ultimately earning the prestigious rank of Eagle Scout. This experience sparked a lifelong passion for nature and camping. He particularly cherished the camps organized by the Lutheran Church, which fostered family connections and communal gatherings. Although he dabbled in playing the trumpet during his free time, Tyler's true passions were adventure and sports. He competed in cross-country running and was an active member of the swim team at Northern Iowa High School in Cedar Falls. Beyond school sports, he loved canoeing, hiking, and snowshoeing. His fascination with computers eventually led him to Missouri, where he pursued a degree in computer science at Truman State University. It was there that he not only completed his studies but also met Sarah, who would later become his wife. Sarah was born on March 27, 1980, in Kansas City and spent part of her childhood near St. Louis with her siblings, Karen, Jane, and Adam. She shared Tyler's enthusiasm for the outdoors, particularly bird watching and studying insects. Like Tyler, she was a Girl Scout and achieved the organization's highest honor, the Gold Award. Sarah's adventurous nature came from her mother, with whom she went backpacking across Central America. It was clear to Tyler from the moment they met that she was his soulmate. As a student, Sarah excelled academically and also took the lead on projects designed to enhance student life at her school. Sarah's natural leadership and dedication earned her the prestigious Truman Scholarship while she was still at Washington High School in Washington, Missouri. This honor paved the way for her attendance at Truman State University, where she met Tyler. The two quickly fell in love, began dating, and Sarah happily accepted his proposal of marriage. Both families wholeheartedly supported their union, recognizing that Tyler and Sarah were perfectly matched and destined to create a loving family together. On Saturday, June 22, 2002, friends and family began arriving at St. John Lutheran Church in Cedar Falls, dressed elegantly for the special occasion. Guests took their seats according to the seating arrangements, with Tyler's parents and Sarah's mother alongside her siblings seated at the front. Tyler's uncles and cousins were nearby. Outside the church, Sarah prepared for her entrance, accompanied by her father, who was ready to walk her down the aisle and give her away to her soon-to-be husband. On that day, 22-year-old Tyler and Sarah exchanged their vows, pledging to remain together for the rest of their lives. United by their mutual love of nature, they chose the Boundary Waters, a renowned wilderness region straddling the U.S.-Canada border between Minnesota and Ontario, as the destination for their 10-day honeymoon. During the first decade of their marriage, Tyler and Sarah focused on building financial stability and advancing their careers. After completing their bachelor's degrees in Missouri, they relocated to Lawrence to pursue master's degrees at the University of Kansas, where Sarah eventually found employment. Tyler, a skilled computer scientist, worked for a supermarket, a delivery company, and UPS, and spent 18 years at a firm specializing in business-to-business billing and payments. Despite their professional commitments, the early years of the Schmidt's marriage were marked by adventure and shared experiences. They made it a point to spend quality time together, exploring new natural landscapes whenever possible. Family and friends often gathered to enjoy their mutual love of board games, and the couple occasionally participated in events organized by their Lutheran church community. As devoted fans of the Kansas Jayhawks, they also supported basketball tournaments at Allen Fieldhouse. The year 2013 was bittersweet for the couple. On one hand, Sarah's father passed away from a heart attack, a significant loss for his loved ones. On the other hand, after 11 years of marriage, the couple welcomed their first child, Arlo. 3 years later, on September 17, 2015, they experienced the joy of parenthood again with the birth of a beautiful daughter, Lula Schmidt. When Arlo was 6 and Lula was 3, the family moved to Cedar Falls to be closer to Tyler's relatives. Cedar Falls welcomed them warmly, and they soon became active members of the community. Tyler continued working as a software engineer while Sarah started working as an assistant at the city's public library and the children enrolled in Lincoln Elementary School's preschool. Tyler and Sarah were known for their kindness and willingness to help others, making everyone around them feel important. This commitment earned them the affection of their neighbors and the entire community. The same was true at the library where Sarah worked. Her warmth and friendly demeanor quickly made her well known and appreciated both inside and outside the library. The couple made sure to instill in Arlo and Lula the same passion they had for outdoor activities and nature. In 2021, they began camping with their children, and despite their busy schedules, the children loved these outings so much that the parents made time for them whenever possible. By mid-2022, Sarah was working long hours. Nevertheless, in June, She took a day off to celebrate their 20th wedding anniversary and planned to take another day in July to go on a family vacation. She had to finish a project for the library before July 26th, but was determined not to let it interfere with the family's plans. During the week of July 11th, Sarah mentioned to Katie, her brother Adam's wife, that she would be camping with the children at Makokata Cave State Park, a popular destination for hikers and explorers in Jackson County, Iowa, famous for its impressive caves and stunning natural landscapes. On Thursday, July 21st, the family packed their car and drove roughly 140 miles to reach Makokata Caves. Tyler and Sarah, both 42, along with their children Arlo, 9, and Lula, 7, arrived at the campsite before 5 p.m. The camping area was packed, so the Schmidts set up near the park's entrance. A few hours later, around 7 p.m., another family parked about 200 feet from their tent. This was Joe and Cecilia Sherwin and their 23-year-old son, Anthony Sherwin, from Nebraska. The Sherwins set up 2 tents, one for the parents and another for their son. They were on their way home after a week-and-a-half camping trip that took them to Michigan's Upper Peninsula. The journey had been enjoyable and had strengthened the bond between Joe, Cecilia, and Anthony. Anthony was always attentive to his parents' needs, and his mother often said he was the best son she could have wished for, kind, sensitive, and an exceptional student. That year, Anthony was working on a computerized system to support a business he claimed was worth millions. He mentioned that part of the profits would be used to help his parents financially. Cecilia knew little about the project because Anthony kept the details of the mysterious business to himself, only mentioning that he sent emails under strict security. As night fell at Makokata Caves, the campers settled into their tents. Before dawn on July 22nd, the park's visitors were jolted awake by the sound of gunshots. Just before the commotion, a man dressed in black entered the Schmidts' tent and attacked Tyler and then Sarah. Arlo, who had been asleep, woke up to the sound of his sister Lula's screams. As he turned, he saw blood inside the tent. Terrified, he managed to escape and ran to seek help. As he fled, he heard one last shot. Cecilia and Joe, in the neighboring campsite, rushed out of their tent amid the confusion. Joe searched for his son among the campers, asking if anyone had seen him. Arlo, still frantic, ran until he encountered the Sherwins. He was screaming and asking for help, saying his parents had been shot. Cecilia took his hand and ran with him to the park entrance. Once there, terrified and unsure of what had happened, she pulled out her phone and dialed 911. She was worried because her son was sleeping near the tent where the shots had come from and feared he might be among the victims. The Jackson County 911 operator understood when Cecilia reported hearing gunshots, but she struggled to pronounce the park's name, making it hard to convey the location. She also explained she was with a boy claiming his parents had been shot. The call between Cecilia and 911 lasted 23 minutes. While she answered questions, the operator relayed the attack to the police and park rangers. Although the call was briefly disconnected, Cecilia persisted and called back, only to be put on hold while the dispatcher contacted emergency responders. Despite the tension and nervousness in the park, adrenaline helped Cecilia stay calm. After providing details about their exact location, she handed the phone to Arlo. The boy explained to the dispatcher that he was in a tent with his mom, sister, and dad, and when he woke up, he saw someone dressed in black holding a gun. The 911 operator asked the child where his father was, and after a pause, he responded that he thought his father was hurt. Around 6:30 a.m., police officers and paramedics arrived at the scene and headed to the Schmidts' tent. What they found was horrifying. All the occupants of the tent were dead. The beautiful campsite had turned into a crime scene. Law enforcement immediately began searching for the shooter, knowing he could be anywhere. The tactical team quickly evacuated Makokata Cave State Park and Camp Shalom, a Christian summer camp located about 1.5 miles from the site of the attack. As officials evacuated the visitors, they gathered them outside the park. Once everyone was accounted for, it was confirmed that only one person was missing: Anthony Sherwin. He was not only missing but also armed. At 11 a.m., police officers conducting an aerial search spotted a man's body. When they reached him, they found he was deceased. It was Anthony. Although investigations were necessary, the police identified him as the suspect in the homicides. They believed he had committed the deadly attack on the Schmidts and then taken his own life. The incident led authorities to close the park, a measure that remained in effect until July 28th. The Iowa Department of Natural Resources expressed its condolences for the incident, Their spokesperson issued a statement saying she and the entire team were devastated by the event, which had shaken the tradition of enjoying the state's natural wonders. But the legacy would continue for the millions of families who recreate in Iowa's parks. Citizens of Cedar Falls heard the news. They were shocked. The atmosphere changed suddenly, as if a gray veil had covered the sky. The reactions of family, friends, acquaintances, and even those who didn't know the victims were filled with pain. Cedar Falls was in mourning. In one of the windows of the Cedar Falls Public Library where Sarah worked, a sign was placed with a message saying that Tyler, Sarah, and Lula had left too soon but would always be in their hearts. The company where Tyler worked as a software engineer issued a statement describing him as a consummate professional and a mentor to his colleagues who were devastated when they heard about the tragedy. They knew of the love Tyler had for his children and his dedication to sharing his knowledge with little Arlo. The mayor of Cedar Falls also expressed his devastation over the loss of 3 beloved community members on his Facebook wall. He knew Sarah well as they had worked together on a tech project. The mayor also urged the residents of Cedar Falls to be generous towards Arlo, the sole survivor of the family, who was safe, and he shared a GoFundMe link for those wishing to donate. Within a few days, the initiative had raised over $276,000. In response to the tragedy, the local authority ordered the closure of the library for the rest of the day out of respect for Sarah's co-workers. The tragedy also elicited reactions from other political leaders. The Iowa governor expressed her horror at the attack and sorrow for the unimaginable tragedy. And a U.S. House representative from Iowa tweeted that it was a senseless and horrific crime. Sarah's family was heartbroken. Her sister said she felt her life had been shattered, unable to believe that Sarah would no longer be just a phone call away and that she wouldn't see her niece grow up. Sarah's family traveled from North Dakota, Texas, and Michigan to join the rest of the family for the private funeral service held at Greenwood Cemetery. On August 2nd, a gathering was held to celebrate the lives of Tyler, Sarah, and Lula at the picnic area of Overman Park. More than 200 people attended. Several attendees, including Tyler's aunt and the mayor, spoke at the podium set up for the occasion, sharing their feelings and memories of the deceased. The mayor concluded the speeches by confessing that he had once envisioned Sarah with her heart dedicated to the community, representing Cedar Falls politically in the future. While the loved ones of the Schmidts dealt with their grief and tried to provide comfort and attention to Arlo, authorities continued their investigation into the horrific crime. According to information released by the Iowa Department of Public Safety based on autopsy findings, Tyler had a gunshot wound and multiple sharp force injuries. His wife Sarah had only sharp force injuries while their young daughter had been both shot and strangled. In early August 2022, authorities released official information on the case, naming Anthony Sherwin as the person responsible for the Schmidt family's murder. According to the police, the 23-year-old, who had no prior criminal record, was the sole person involved in the incident before taking his own life. The investigation did not reveal any motive for the attack. The assistant director of the Division of Criminal Investigation stated that no connection was established between Anthony and the Schmidt family prior to that fateful day or during their time as neighboring campers. The police department in Nebraska assisted with the investigation. When officers searched the Sherwin family apartment in Nebraska, they found no suicide note or any indication that could explain why Anthony targeted the Schmidt family and himself. His Facebook page was also void of any clues, as it was completely blank. Regarding the weapons used by the attacker, the assistant director of the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation mentioned only one, a hand-assembled firearm which was recovered near Anthony's body. These types of weapons, also known as ghost guns, are built by individuals, often using parts purchased online without any restrictions. Since they lack serial numbers, they are difficult to regulate and trace. Seeking to confirm this information, the Des Moines Register contacted Anthony's parents, who confirmed that their son had built his own weapon using information found online. They explained that he did it as a challenge rather than out of a specific desire to own a gun. They also emphasized that Anthony was very responsible and had never harmed another person or animal. Cecilia asserted that their family had never owned guns and that they had decided to acquire them due to the rising crime rates in Nebraska. She added that due to their lack of experience, they even took classes to learn how to handle them. The parents explained that they brought the homemade gun on the trip for protection against crime and possibly bear attacks, as they had experienced one night while camping. They also mentioned their intention to dispose of it upon returning home. Anthony's parents set out to prove their son's innocence, convinced that he was a victim of homicide and not the killer. According to Anthony's mother, an independently obtained autopsy report indicated that he had been shot twice, not once as claimed by the police. She suspected that the first shot was meant to incapacitate him, but she could not understand how he managed to shoot himself a second time, challenging the authorities' theory of suicide. Another point they raised was the color of the clothing the attacker was wearing. Cecilia recalled telling the 911 operator that the assailant was dressed in black, which did not match what her son was wearing. Green shorts she had given him the day before the tragedy. Additionally, Cecilia and Joe reported that the police did not disclose where Anthony's body was found, or whether the weapon he allegedly used to take his own life was the same one used against the Schmidts. When they specifically asked investigators if a ballistic test had been conducted to confirm matches, they received no answers. All these concerns were outlined in an email Cecilia sent to the media. In the message, she stated that her son had too many reasons to live and she was certain he would not abandon everything in such a manner. They had not seen any signs of him planning such an attack. In her opinion, Anthony was incapable of killing and had no connection to the Schmidt family. According to the grieving mother, the investigators only responded that it was a random murder. Anthony's parents requested the final investigation report to commission an independent review, but claimed they received no response to this request. In January 2023, a media outlet reported that it had requested public records of the case, adhering to Iowa's Open Records Law and the Freedom of Information Act. The request referenced incident reports, investigation documents, crime scene summaries, and autopsy reports. Devin McClone, from the Office of the Iowa Department of Public Safety Commissioner, responded that the requested records were not public and they could only share the immediate facts and circumstances of the case, which were included in the links provided in the press release. A few days later, the media outlet sent an email to the official inquiring whether the weapon Anthony used to take his own life matched the one used in the murders. She did not respond. Unless new evidence surfaces to the contrary, the police maintained that Anthony Sherwin was a random killer who viciously shot, stabbed, and strangled 3 beloved members of a Cedar Falls family. In contrast, Cecilia and Joe believe their son, whom they described as a kind and studious individual, is innocent and another murder victim. They vowed to continue their efforts to prove his innocence. After his traumatic experience, Arlo, the only survivor of the massacre, was taken in by his family in Cedar Falls, specifically Sarah's brother. In an exclusive interview with a local newspaper, Sarah's brother stated that his nephew had been very brave and was in excellent mental health. The GoFundMe page created after the tragedy continues to receive donations to support Arlo's upbringing and to establish an educational fund for his future. Today's case will take us to Spokane, a city located in the state of Washington in the United States. It is known for its rich cultural heritage and natural beauty, making it a popular destination for outdoor enthusiasts. With the Spokane River running through its center, the city offers a thriving downtown area with a plethora of shopping, dining, and entertainment options. The city is also famous for being the birthplace of Father's Day, and for hosting the annual Lilac Festival, which celebrates the blooming of the city's signature flower. Candy was born in the year 1950 to parents Elaine and Carl Rogers. Since she was an only child, her parents greatly cherished her. At some point, Elaine and Carl's marriage came crashing down for unknown reasons, and this caused them to get divorced and go their separate ways. However, Candy remained in the care of her mother, who was a schoolteacher at the time. Elaine ensures that she provided for her daughter as best she could. Candy was a popular face in her community, and those who knew her described her as a pleasant and friendly little girl who loved to laugh. By 1959, Candy was 9 years old and was a 4th grader at Holmes Elementary School. Like most girls within her age range, Candy also joined a youth organization known as the Bluebirds. The Bluebirds were younger members of the Camp Fire Girls, and the organization aims to provide girls with education and recreational activities so as to encourage personal growth, self-reliance, and a connection to nature. Candy got actively involved in the activities of the group, which included camping trips, community services, hiking, and a host of others. She enjoyed every moment and took on every activity with enthusiasm. Candy was growing into a smart and happy girl with a future that looked very bright, and everyone around her could see that. However, no one was expecting that a heartbreaking tragedy would soon take her away and shake the entire community to its core. On March 6, 1959, Candy returned from school to the home she shared with her mother. It was a Friday, and she looked forward to spending time with her friends the following day. However, she also had something else she wanted to do first. The Bluebirds were trying to raise funds for one of their upcoming activities, and as part of the efforts to do so, members were required to sell a variety of chocolates in their neighborhood. Candy had 7 boxes of campfire mints that she planned to sell that day. She asked her mother, Elaine, if she could leave home to do this. She was given approval. However, Elaine reminded her to not spend too much time outdoors and to return home before dark. It was a rule that Candy had always followed, but Elaine still made sure to remind her of it every time she left home. Had Elaine known that particular day would be different, she would have never let her daughter leave the house. Candy ate a quick snack of an oatmeal cookie and also played with their family dog briefly. Then she grabs the boxes of campfire mints and made her way out of the house. The time was around 4 p.m. There were several girls of her age selling chocolate from door to door that fateful afternoon, and she joins them. Nobody knows what exactly happened afterwards, but Candy never returned home. At around 5:30 p.m., Elaine began to get worried. She knew it was unlike Candy to remain outside this late. As the minutes slowly dragged by, it seemed like hours to Elaine, and she kept listening for the familiar sound of Candy's footsteps approaching the house. But they never came. At around 6 p.m., her anxiety had skyrocketed, and she was sure that something had gone wrong. She quickly informed Candy's grandfather, Stanley Newton, about the situation. Other relatives, friends, and neighbors were also informed that Candy had not returned home. And by 6:30 p.m., a small group of people were out looking for her. They began by asking people around the neighborhood if they knew where she was, and some people confirmed that they had seen her walking around earlier, clutching the boxes of campfire mints she was selling. But nobody seemed to know where exactly she could now be. Around 7 p.m., Candy's grandfather Newton and his friends were almost hit by a speeding car but managed to jump out of harm's way. The close call left them shaken, but their attention quickly returned to finding Candy as the sky darkened. Despite the difficulties of searching in the fading light, the men held on to hope that Candy would be found safe and sound before nightfall. At some point, the authorities were also notified about the missing girl, and soon police officers and sheriff's deputies also joined in the search. At around 9 p.m. that same day, a group of searchers came across some boxes of campfire mints. They were found lying across Paddock Drive, and many believed that they had been the same boxes Candy had been selling. 6 campfire mint boxes were found that night, but Candy had left home with 7. That night's search proved to be futile. There was no sign of Candy anywhere. Elaine could hardly sleep a wink throughout the night. Many thoughts raced through her mind, and she wondered if her daughter was okay. The uncertainty was just too much to bear, and she silently cried and prayed that Candy would return home safely to her. The following morning was a Saturday, and by then almost everyone in the city had gotten the news that Candy was missing. Well-meaning individuals trooped out in large numbers to begin the search for the day. Officers rode on horseback, as well as in vehicles to conduct the search. They looked through the woods and along major roads. The Air Force also assisted in the search by providing a helicopter. The aircraft was boarded by 4 trained personnel as well as 1 pilot, and they took it to the air. While flying over Spokane River, the pilot failed to see a high-tension wire until the last moment and ended up flying into it. The effect was immediate. The helicopter spiraled out of control and crashed into the Spokane River, instantly killing 3 of the 5 men on board. Airman Merles D. Ray, Sergeant William A. McDonald, and Lieutenant Kenneth G. Fotek were the 3 men who tragically lost their lives on that day. Everyone who had joined in the search for Candy was saddened by the tragic event, but it did little to discourage them from searching for her. They remained determined, and therefore intensified their efforts. None of them wanted the death of the 3 heroes to be in vain. But despite everyone's best efforts, they had no luck locating Candy for several days. It was as if she had simply vanished without a trace. With each passing day that Candy remained missing, Elaine began to look like a shadow of herself. She refused to touch her meals and would constantly stare into space. Not knowing the whereabouts of her only daughter was slowly driving her insane. The burden on her heart was just too much to bear. March 22, 1956 made it 16 days that Candy had been missing, and it was the day she was found. That afternoon, 2 airmen named Howard Lawrence and Richard Bergen were out hunting woodchucks in a wooded area about 7 miles away from Candy's home. Upon getting to a small clearing in the forest, they noticed a small pair of blue suede shoes. The delicate craftsmanship of the shoes and the small size indicated that they belonged to a child. They were baffled and wondered how the shoes had gotten there, so far away from town. After looking around and waiting a while to see if anyone would come out to lay claim to the shoes, they picked them up and made their way back to base. The 2 men could not stop talking about the discovery they made in the woods, and the news soon spread like wildfire. The shoes were handed over to the police, who contacted Candy's grandfather to see if he could identify them. They had a strong suspicion that the shoes belonged to the little girl they had spent several days searching for. When Candy's grandfather saw the shoes, he told the police officers that they indeed looked similar to the ones she had worn in the past. With this confirmation, officers decided to focus their search on the area where the shoes had been found. Since it had grown dark, conducting a search would be difficult that night, and so they agreed to wait until the next morning. The following day was a Sunday, and by dawn, a team of officers and volunteers had arrived at the clearing where the shoes had been found. They immediately began looking through the area, but initially found nothing. After some time went by, one of the officers suddenly came across a small mound made up of brush and pine needles. He found it strange and decided to take a closer look. To his horror, it did not take him long to see a knee sticking out from under the pile, and he carefully brushed away the leaves to reveal the decomposing body of a child. He instantly recognized her as the little girl they had been looking for. The clothes she was wearing were torn in places, and when the officer looked at her feet, he noticed that they were bound. A torn strip of cloth had been used to do this. Also wrapped around her neck was another strip of clothing. The officer quickly alerted the other searchers, and soon after, the body was taken out of the area for an autopsy. Candy's relatives were immediately contacted and informed about the state in which she was found. Upon hearing that her daughter was dead, Elaine lost consciousness and had to be placed under sedation. More than 1,000 searchers who had volunteered their time, resources, and energy to look for Candy were shocked by the news. There was a general feeling of dread in the air, and from that moment, many people began to fear for their safety as well as their children's. The result of the autopsy that was conducted on Candy's body revealed that she had been abused and then strangled to death. Detectives from the Spokane Police Department immediately began an investigation to find out who the culprit was. We'll put every available man on the case and keep them there till the thing is solved. Police Chief Clifford Payne had told the media at the time. "We know what we're looking for now. We're looking for a maniac," he added. A lot of individuals were questioned, but detectives were unable to get any helpful information. The first person the authorities suspected of committing the crime was an imprisoned serial killer by the name of Hugh Byron Morse, and they had good reason for believing that he had something to do with it. When the autopsy was conducted on Candy's body, a strange purple smear that smells like grape gum had been noticed on her clothes, and Morse was known for having a special liking for grape gum. But when he was asked about Candy's murder, he denied any involvement in it. Since there was no evidence to show that he was the killer they were looking for, charges could not be brought up against him. However, he remained a prime suspect in the case for a long time. Apart from him, detectives also investigated several tips that poured in after Candy's death, but none of them proved to be of any use. Candy was eventually laid to rest, and her devastated family members hoped that her killer would be brought to justice sooner than later. But several months went by after this, and the case remained a tough one for detectives to crack. In June 1963, 4 years after Candy's death, her father, Carl, sadly took his own life, unable to cope with losing his daughter. At the time, he had been living in a hotel in Walla Walla. Years went by, and Candy began to fade from the memories of many. But her family and the detectives of Spokane Police Department never forgot. This is the kind of case that's been the giant logjam for cold cases. And in Spokane, I keep saying it's the Mount Everest of our cold cases, the one that we could never seem to overcome. But at the same time, nobody ever forgot, said Detective Zach Stormont of the Spokane Police Department Major Crimes. By 2001, there had been a significant advancement in DNA technology compared to the 1950s, when it was non-existent. Candy's clothes from when her body was found have been carefully stored by the authorities as evidence. These clothes were now submitted to the lab with the hopes that the killer's DNA could be identified. Forensic investigators quickly got to work, and they were able to determine that Candy's underwear had on it. They were able to isolate DNA from this, and it was used to create a DNA profile. It was an exciting period for detectives as they felt closer than ever to solving the case. The newly developed DNA profile was then uploaded to the database. But unfortunately, no match was found. In 2002, detectives compared the DNA profile to that of Morse, who had remained on their radar for a long time. However, to their disappointment, they discovered that he was not the man they were looking for. Nothing of interest would surface for a long time. In September 2006, Candy's heartbroken mother quietly passed away in her home at the age of 82. She died not knowing who had killed her precious daughter. Around 2017, forensic genetic genealogy came to the limelight as a new scientific method being used to solve several cold cases. The method uses DNA analysis and traditional genealogical methods to solve crimes and identify missing persons. In other words, it combines science with family history research to piece together clues and bring justice to victims and their loved ones. With the method gaining popularity, detectives decided to give it a try and use it in helping them solve Candy's murder. Brittany Wright, a forensic scientist with the Washington State Patrol Crime Laboratory Division, got assigned to the case around the time. She was able to get her hands on a DNA sample that had been stored in the crime lab freezer since 2001. The next thing she did was reanalyze the sample to confirm that it matched the original perpetrator's DNA profile from 2001. Upon confirming this, she followed up with a diagnostic analysis to determine if it could be used for forensic genetic genealogy. The sample was then sent to a private forensic lab. However, this turned out to be a futile effort as, according to the lab, the DNA sample was too degraded to work with. Detectives' hopes were completely dashed when they were given the news, and they could hardly hide their disappointment. A year would go by after this before detectives caught a lucky break. They learned about a particular laboratory that could efficiently work with degraded DNA like the one in Candy's case. The laboratory was known as Othram, and it was located in Texas. Brittany reached out to them to inquire if Candy's case was eligible. Upon receiving a positive response, she then sent off a small amount of the remaining DNA sample for testing. 6 months later, the lab came back with a result. 3 brothers had been identified as the possible suspects. Their names were John, Andrew, and Terry Hoff. As it turned out, all 3 were long dead. Upon further investigation, detectives discovered that one of the men, John, had a daughter named Kathy. They decided to contact her to let her know that they were investigating her dead father. By that point, I had already looked up a little girl murdered in 1959. So I knew who it was, Kathy said. She provided detectives with a DNA sample which was then analyzed, and the result was astonishing. It revealed that it was 2.9 million times more likely that Kathy's DNA was related to the suspect DNA profile than the general population. With this, detectives became more certain that John was the killer they had spent decades looking for. They did a background check on him and discovered that in addition to growing up in Spokane, he lived about a mile from Candy's home at the time of her murder. He also had a troubled past. In 1956, at the age of 17, enlisted in the Army. However, in 1961, 2 years after Candy's death, he was arrested for assaulting a woman. According to reports, he had approached the woman and used force to remove her clothes while she struggled and screamed for help. He then used the clothes to tie her up before trying to strangle her. Luckily, the woman survived the ordeal. For the crime, John spent 6 months in prison. And when he got out, the Army labeled him a deserter and discharged him from service. After this, John led a pretty normal life. He worked as a door-to-door salesman and also in a lumber yard to make ends meet. However, at the young age of 31, he ended up taking his own life. Apart from this, detectives also uncovered a possible connection between John and Candy. Hoff's stepsister was a 10-year-old campfire girl at the time of Candy's murder, and had taken on the role of Candy's big sister in the program. Detectives believed that this was how John might have known Candy. When detectives uncovered all this about John, they decided to take one final step to confirm that he was Candy's killer. With Kathy's permission as well as a search warrant, they traveled to the cemetery where John was buried and exhumed his corpse. A DNA sample was taken from his remains and was then sent to the lab for testing. The result was what detectives expected. John was Candy's killer. "We got extremely lucky in that we got DNA from 1959, said former Spokane police detectives Brian Hammond, who worked tirelessly on the case till he retired in 2021. They had no concept of that at the time, and that's obviously what cracks the case. Otherwise, I don't believe it would have ever been solved." Hammond added, some of Candy's surviving relatives were contacted and informed about the breakthrough in the case. "It's not closure, but at least there's some form of satisfaction knowing that the person that did it is at least named. He may be in a grave, but he's named," said 77 Joan Posse, a cousin of Candy. Candy's relatives, however, remained saddened by the fact that her grandparents and parents never got to know who killed her. They never saw him pay or die for it or whatever. They went to their grave not knowing, and that was hard, Joan said. As for Kathy, the revelation that her father was the murderer shook her to the bones. "It's just really sad to find out that someone, not even just your dad, but someone in your family, could do something like that," Kathy said. John passed away when she was only 9, and she grew up believing that he had done it out of depression. "And now I think no, he was evil," she said. "It wasn't an escape and away from it. but he got to die with people thinking he was an upstanding man and he wasn't. Kathy also rendered a public apology for her father's crime and the pain it caused the murdered girl's family. "I'm very, very sorry for what my dad did. That he took her life horribly," she said. "I hope that it gives peace knowing that even though it's not really justice because he doesn't get any punishment, his name has this on it now, and they can know it's solved." Through the act of one man, a family was plunged into misery and remained in the dark for more than 60 years. However, the determination and perseverance of several generations of detectives helped to reveal his identity and bring the bereaved family much-needed closure. On April 9, 2016, a chilling call shocked the Renton Police Department. The remains of a woman's body, Ingrid Line, were found in a white trash bag. The discovery included a severed arm, a detached head, and a sliced-off leg. Investigators began their search for answers, leading them to a suspect. What dark secrets would they uncover in their pursuit of justice? Let's go back to the beginning. Ingrid Ronceville, a lively individual, was born on August 2, 1975 in Arizona. She graduated from Canyon del Oro High School in Tucson in 1993 and pursued nursing, earning a Bachelor of Science in Nursing from the University of Arizona in 1997. In 2000, Ingrid moved to Washington, where she worked at Seattle's Swedish Medical Center, positively impacting many lives. She married Philip Line and had 3 daughters, Reese, Brooke, and Noelle. After divorcing Philip in 2014, Ingrid moved to Renton with her daughters to start a new chapter. As a single mother, she faced challenges but was devoted to her children's happiness. In 2016, Ingrid was living in Renton with her daughters, aged 6, 8, and 10. Despite the divorce, Ingrid and Philip remained in touch for their daughter's sake. The divorce left Ingrid feeling broken, longing for love and respect she missed in her previous marriage. During this challenging period, Ingrid, a 40-year-old woman, found solace in an online connection she made through a dating site. Their conversations provided her with comfort, momentarily alleviating her pain and giving her a sense of love. This individual made her feel beautiful and accepted her, despite the fact that she already had 3 daughters. It was like a dream come true for Ingrid, signifying the start of a new chapter in her life. On April 8, 2016, after a month of online communication, Ingrid took a leap of faith and agreed to meet this person for a date. It was her way of embracing the possibility of moving forward. Ingrid entrusted her daughters to her ex-husband's care, assuring them that she would take them out the following day. Ingrid and her date decided to attend the opening game of the Seattle Mariners, an exhilarating baseball event. After the game, they went to a bar where the man's sister happened to work. They spent the evening happily playing darts, sharing drinks and laughing together. Ingrid felt an overwhelming sense of happiness and freedom. The next day, on April 9, 2016, Philip, Ingrid's ex-husband, arrived at her home in Renton around 10 a.m. to drop off their daughters. As he approached the house, he noticed that Ingrid's 2015 silver Toyota Highlander was missing. Concerned, he repeatedly knocked on the door, but received no response. He tried calling her multiple times, but Ingrid did not answer any of his calls. This was unusual because Ingrid was known for never breaking promises, especially when it came to her daughters. Philip couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Growing increasingly worried, he decided to contact Ingrid's mother, Jorga Boss, hoping she might have some information about Ingrid's whereabouts. However, Jorga was also concerned when she learned that Ingrid was not at home, as she had no idea where Ingrid could be. Filled with anxiety, Jorga hurried to Ingrid's house, armed with a spare key. She utilized it to gain entry into the residence and called out for Ingrid. Yet there was no reply. Alarmed, Jorga proceeded upstairs to inspect Ingrid's bedroom, only to discover that Ingrid was not there. However, she did stumble upon Ingrid's purse and phone on the table. There was no trace of Ingrid or her car. The situation appeared peculiar and suspicious. It didn't make sense for Ingrid to leave the house without her phone and purse if she had indeed departed. After all, most individuals wouldn't leave their homes without money or a means of communication. This raised even more inquiries and concerns about Ingrid's whereabouts. Without wasting any time, Jorga promptly contacted the police and reported her daughter as missing. Upon arrival at Ingrid's residence in Renton, the Renton Police Department officers were met by Jorga, whose tear-filled eyes conveyed her distress. Initially, the police attempted to console Jorga, suggesting that Ingrid may have gone out and would return soon. However, Jorga's intuition told her otherwise. She had a gut feeling that something was wrong. Determined to locate her daughter, she implored the police to conduct a thorough investigation. The police wasted no time, commenced a meticulous door-to-door inquiry, interrogating the neighbors in hopes of uncovering any leads. They diligently questioned the neighbors, inquiring if they had witnessed Ingrid entering her house the previous night or leaving in the morning. One neighbor had an intriguing account to share. He disclosed that he had seen Ingrid returning home with an unfamiliar man the previous night. The man appeared suspicious, as the neighbor had never seen him before. What perplexed everyone was the fact that no one had observed Ingrid leaving her house thereafter. The question lingered: who was this man? And if Ingrid had returned home but was not seen leaving, where could she possibly be? The police urged individuals to reflect on any unusual incidents they may have noticed the night before or that morning. They encouraged anyone with information to come forward, as it could be crucial in locating Ingrid. The daughters were growing increasingly concerned upon seeing the police inquire about their mother. They turned to Jorga, their grandmother, for answers. They inquired about their mother's well-being, but Jorga reassured them, explaining that she had simply gone out and would be back soon. The police assured Jorga that they would investigate the situation. Jorga anxiously awaited her daughter's return, and suddenly a realization dawned on her. Jorga remembered that she and Ingrid shared a Verizon account, which provides access to various services like phone plans and internet. Intrigued, she checked the phone records and noticed a recurring number that Ingrid had been in contact with, even on the day she disappeared. Jorga decided to dig deeper and input the number into Facebook. To her surprise, a profile belonging to a man named John Charlton popped up. Filled with hope, she messaged him, desperately seeking any information about Ingrid's whereabouts. The response was prompt. "I'm John. I assume she was with her children today," John replied. Jorga quickly responded, her hands shaking as she typed. "When was the last time you saw her? She wasn't here. Her phone, driver's license, and purse were all left behind, but she's gone. I've contacted 911 for assistance." John's reply conveyed confusion. 911? What's going on? He elaborated. "We attended the Mariners game last night, but we didn't spend the night together because she had plans with her kids today. I'm not sure what she told you about me and our relationship." Fear gripped Jorga as she messaged back. "She's missing. Can you please provide the time you last saw her? The authorities need to speak with you, as you might be the last person to have seen her." At that moment, it became evident to Jorga that Ingrid had indeed gone on a date with John Charlton the previous evening. It appeared probable that he was the same individual the neighbor had witnessed accompanying Ingrid back to her residence. With a mixture of concern and optimism, Jorga realized that John might possess some knowledge regarding Ingrid's whereabouts. However, John remained silent, leaving Jorga in a state of anxiety and desperation for answers. She persisted in sending him messages pleading, "John, please call me. I am aware that your name is John Charlton, so kindly reach out to me." With each passing moment, the burden of uncertainty grew heavier. Jorga could not bear the thought of her daughter disappearing without a trace. She persevered, hoping for any lead, and messaged him once again. "John, did Ingrid mention anything about meeting someone after you parted ways last night? We cannot locate her or her vehicle. Her phone, identification, and purse are at home, but she and her car have vanished. We are at our wits' end, desperate for any assistance. Ingrid would never simply abandon her family like this." Nevertheless, John remained silent and did not respond to any of the messages. Jorga felt a sense of helplessness and tears streamed down her face. The situation escalated when, 6 hours after Ingrid was reported missing, around 4 p.m., the police received a disturbing call from an individual named Mike Novasio. Mike resided approximately 10 miles away from Ingrid's residence at 21st Avenue and East Rhine Street in Seattle. In a frightened tone, he conveyed that while taking out his recycling bin, he stumbled upon what appeared to be human body parts enclosed in white trash bags. Mike's voice quivered as he recounted his unsettling encounter. He described seeing a head and noticing the painted toenails, which caused a wave of sickness to wash over him. The sight was unbearable. He explained that the body parts had been meticulously wrapped in the bags, indicating a disturbing level of precision. The police wasted no time and promptly arrived at the location. With meticulous care, they retrieved the bags from the bins. As the bags were opened, a chilling shock fell upon them. They stumbled upon a decapitated head, a fragment of a leg and an arm, with the remaining body parts nowhere to be found. Due to the absence of decomposition, the facial features remained intact and recognizable, suggesting that the individual had been recently murdered. A human leg was discovered at a recycling plant on South Hanford Street in Seattle. Leg belonged to a woman with the same painted toenails as Ingrid. This indicated that Ingrid's body parts had been scattered across 3 different locations, including the easily accessible recycling bins. The police began to suspect that the perpetrator might not be a serial killer, as they typically dispose of bodies in more concealed locations. Instead, they started considering the possibility that the culprit could be someone close to Ingrid. Determined to uncover any overlooked evidence, the police returned to Ingrid's home and decided to remove the plumbing for a thorough examination. Upon their surprise, they stumbled upon more blood in the disassembled drain trap. To aid their investigation, they employed a reagent known as Blue Star, which unveiled additional traces of blood that had been meticulously cleaned. It was clear that this was not a spur-of-the-moment act of violence. It was a meticulously planned and executed murder, introducing a captivating twist to the case. As the results from the analysis came in, more unsettling details about Ingrid's demise surfaced. Initially deemed as homicidal violence, a closer examination by the medical examiner revealed petechiae, small blood vessels in her eyes indicating strangulation. Furthermore, signs of hemorrhaging on the neck were found. It was apparent that Ingrid was first strangled and then dismembered within her own residence. The revelation shed light on the brutal way Ingrid's life was taken, hinting at a deep-seated animosity towards her. The toxicology report disclosed that Ingrid had no drugs in her system, but her blood alcohol level was 0.074, slightly above the normal range. 2 days later, on April 20th, 2016, authorities located Ingrid's vehicle in Belltown, a mere 6-minute drive from Seattle. This raised suspicions, as John had claimed Ingrid dropped him off downtown and should have returned home before her murder. The abandonment of her car so close to Seattle, where they had attended a Seattle Mariners game together, seemed peculiar. Law enforcement meticulously combed through the entire vehicle and made a chilling discovery. The same white trash bags containing Ingrid's dismembered body parts were found inside the car. Additionally, 3 fingerprints were found on the driver's door handle of the vehicle. These prints were crucial, as they could belong to Ingrid, given that the car was hers, or they could belong to the perpetrator who had driven her car to that location. Realizing the significance of this evidence, the fingerprints were promptly sent for testing. The findings confirmed the suspicions of the police. The fingerprints were a match for John Charlton, the individual Ingrid had gone out with on the evening she went missing. It became apparent that John's statements during the interrogation were all calculated tactics to mislead the authorities. Despite initially claiming to be intoxicated and unaware of the events that transpired that night, the meticulous planning and execution of the crime, coupled with the thorough cleaning of the residence to eliminate any traces of evidence, indicated that John acted with full consciousness and possessed a clear motive for murdering Ingrid. The police recollected that during the questioning, John had mentioned staying with his former girlfriend. In their pursuit of gathering more information about John, the police exerted significant efforts to locate and interview his ex-girlfriend, ensuring her identity remained undisclosed for privacy concerns. During the interview, she disclosed that John, who worked as a day laborer, typically spent his nights at a shelter in Seattle, except for a few nights each week when he stayed at her place. They had known each other for approximately a year, and she permitted him to store some of his belongings at her residence. Interestingly, she informed the police that John was supposed to visit her on the Saturday morning of April 9, 2016, the day after his encounter with Ingrid. However, he arrived later than planned, citing an unforeseen circumstance. She revealed that he arrived at the bus station in Lake Stevens around 10:30 p.m., and she immediately noticed that he had a swollen and injured lip. When questioned about it, John claimed that he had been the victim of an attempted robbery at a bar despite still having his wallet. This particular detail captured the attention of the police. When they interrogated John on April 11, 2016, they observed abrasions on his head, chin, and scratches on his chest and arms. These injuries appeared to align with the unsettling possibility that they may have been inflicted during the struggle between John and Ingrid when he strangled her. It seemed as though she had put up a strong fight, leaving her mark on him in a desperate bid to defend herself. The police acted swiftly without hesitation, taking John into custody and charging him with the murder of Ingrid Line. John Robert Charlton was born in 1979 in Washington to Ray and Joan Charlton. At 37 years old, he had a history of encounters with the law. His past included a misdemeanor assault conviction in King County in 1997, indicating a propensity for aggression. Additionally, he had a history of negligent driving in Washington state in 1998. In 2006, he faced charges of attempted aggravated robbery in Utah. It appeared that he was no stranger to trouble. In 2008, he was found guilty of felony theft in Montana. Moreover, records showed a misdemeanor battery case in Idaho in 2009, hinting at a pattern of violent behavior. These prior run-ins with the law added a layer of complexity to John's character and raised suspicions about his potential involvement in serious crimes. John's turbulent past extended beyond his criminal record. Troubling incidents involving his parents shed light on his volatile behavior. In 2006, John's parents sought protection from him, citing concerns for their safety. They recounted his drunken outbursts and expressed fear for their well-being. Court documents detailed a disturbing incident on March 2, 2006, when John, under the influence of alcohol, turned physically and verbally abusive towards his parents. During that episode, John allegedly took the movie Hannibal from a shelf in the house and placed it in front of his mother, warning her to watch it and be cautious. According to his parents, John held grudges for years, and his conduct grew increasingly menacing and violent when under the influence of alcohol or drugs. They also suspected his use of crack cocaine. Although the request for the protection order was eventually dismissed, these occurrences painted a troubling picture of John's unstable and aggressive tendencies. John initially denied any knowledge of Ingrid's fate, but eventually changed his plea to guilty before the trial began. The prosecution presented a compelling case in court alleging that John had murdered Ingrid inside her own home. Shockingly, it was revealed that John had driven through downtown Seattle disposing of Ingrid's body parts in various trash cans. The medical examiner's report confirmed that Ingrid's death was a result of violent homicide. In response, the defense argued that there was a lack of forensic evidence linking anyone, including their client, to Ingrid's murder. They urged the community not to rush to conclusions during this tragic event. However, all the evidence seemed to point towards John's involvement. The prosecutor, Dan Satterberg, acknowledged that there were still unanswered questions surrounding the motive behind Ingrid's murder. Nevertheless, he praised the diligent work of the police and prosecutors in gathering evidence to build a strong case against the person they believed was responsible for her death. It was a challenging task, but their dedication paid off in delivering justice for Ingrid. John was sentenced to a maximum of 27 years and 9 months in prison in accordance with the state's guidelines. However, Judge Julie Spector presiding over the case in King County Superior Court expressed her strong condemnation, stating that if she had the authority, she would have given him a life sentence. She described his actions as unimaginably vicious and cruel. During the sentencing hearing, John addressed the court and Ingrid's grieving family, acknowledging the immense pain he had caused and expressing genuine remorse. Ingrid's ex-husband, Philip, spoke about the profound loss caused by John's actions, highlighting how John had not only taken away a co-parent and confidant, but also a loving and caring mother to their daughters. Philip expressed his sorrow over the fact that the children would no longer have the guidance and wisdom of Ingrid as a mother figure. He mentioned that they would miss out on cherished traditions such as celebrating July 4th in Big Fork, Montana, going on beach trips, and enjoying Thursday night dinners at a steakhouse. Additionally, Philip shared the heartbreaking realization that their future grandchildren would never experience the love and care of a maternal grandmother. Despite their resilience, Philip acknowledged that their daughters deeply feel the absence of their mother every day, each in their own unique way. Ingrid's close friend, Nancy Civitilli, described the indescribable horror that engulfed everyone upon hearing about Ingrid's tragic death. She emphasized that the murder was not just an act of violence, but a violation of Ingrid's body, leaving behind an unimaginable aftermath. Civitilli did not hold back in calling John a coward, directly addressing him and reminding him of the profound impact his actions had on Ingrid's daughters. She pointed out how he selfishly tore away a beautiful person and a devoted mother from their lives. Civitilli also highlighted the loss felt by friends like herself, who considered Ingrid as a sister. While justice has been served, the scars of this tragedy will forever remain.